Speaker's Corner aboard the Villa V Odyssey, hosted by Kit Cassingham.
Good evening, Odyssey residents. Welcome to Speaker's Corner.
Semblance of normalcy.
What was that?
Semblance of normalcy.
Oh, okay. And I know that we had a replacement for me last time, and you didn't even beat her up, which I'm grateful for. So, anyway.
She's grateful too.
Yes, and she is grateful too.
Big improvement.
She's been watching. Yeah. So when Joe told me what he wanted to talk about tonight, my mind immediately went to the Jetsons. I thought, oh, he's going to talk about our own little Rosie robots or housekeepers. And I used to have a robot. So flying cars and beds that push you out of bed like that's your alarm clock. I just thought it was going to be
You're close, but not quite there.
Well, it's getting closer.
Okay.
And I just spent the past week or two in Sriracha at the various hospitals and hotels and things, and they're using robotics. They had very big Roombas, whatever they're called, the housekeeping things, and they had the cutest little robot that would park itself, and when it had a job, it would go to the job and get loaded up with the various medicines, and then it would go to wherever it needed to go. There was a little parking place for it in the elevator, and it was just great to watch all of that. So I think he's going to talk about all that.
I hope
or
so.
not. We'll find out.
It's a
You never
surprise.
know what Joe's going to talk about. So let's go to see what Joe's going to talk about. Notes from the Edge of Tomorrow.
Oh, thank you.
Joe Braun.
Thank you. And welcome back, Kit and Randy, by the way. We're glad to have you back on the ship. Thank you, all my friends, and I think I have some of my relatives out there, too, that are going to help with the crowd noise. Family, yeah. So I am going to talk about Notes from the Edge of Tomorrow. Some of you know me fairly well, know that I'm a fellow at the University of Texas in bioethics, and what I do, my major area is technology, especially technology and medicine. So when I was back home this last 6 weeks, I was combing the journals, and a couple of things popped up that caught my eye that were really kind of, to my mind at least, earth-shaking. So I consulted ChatGPT, as I always do. It told me to put my socks on, brush my teeth, and write a presentation. So that's what I did. And Notes from the Edge of Tomorrow, I have a Substack, and some of this information is actually on the Substack too. It's funny she mentions that about the robots. Paul and I were having a discussion just before this. The Chinese are so far ahead of us on robotics. It's scary. I was hoping when we get to Hong Kong, I was able to go to one of the demonstration stores to see about getting them. They sell a very autonomous robot, fully articulated. In other words, the hands and everything work, and the price is $20,000. I mean, that's amazing. The one that SpaceX sells, if you get all the bells and whistles, you can't get it under 100,000. So they definitely are outweighing us in terms of price and everything. So with that, everyone thinks they're living on unprecedented times. Everybody thinks, oh, this is the time that's going to end this, or this is going to change that. I mean, I can imagine the first caveman, when he started a fire, said, oh man, this is going to revolutionize things. I can cook my fire, and look how warm I am. Thomas Edison probably said, wow, this telephone's going to be great, and all through history we've had these big changes in technology that have affected what we do in culture. And this era, I think, is going to be different because usually only one part or domain of society is involved in each change. This time, we have 3 different technologies affecting 3 different domains, and they're in confluence. In other words, they're coming together. There's a synergy between them. So it's a bit scary. Again, disruptive technology simply means that it's a technology when society takes and introduces it and accepts it and everything, it changes the way society works. So like the printing press, that certainly changed the way we disseminate things. I mean, Gutenberg then could start, publishing his romance novels and probably the latest issue of Play Gothic or something like that. You probably don't know the first printing press was actually made from an old wine press. You can see pretty much how that would go, but so there's a synergy. When you're reading, you're drinking in a sense too. So the steam engine started the industrial age, and it's not by happenstance that we measure the power of such things in horsepower. What they did in those days, and when they replaced a steam engine, something to replace like a horse grinding corn or something like that, they measured it in terms of horsepower. So it was basically the steam engine was replacing like 6 horses if it was 6 horsepower. And of course we have computers, and we well know what that has happened to us. It's funny, most of these, hopefully all of us were alive before electricity was invented. My mother always used to tell me that, in some of the rural areas in southern Illinois, they didn't get electricity till quite late, like in the 20s. I guess it was part of the Rural Electrification Act. But anyway, each one of these transformed some major domain. It transformed the domain of ideas, it transformed the domain of production, information, and cooking. So, you can see how those are key things in life that get affected by this. Well, these are really disruptive technologies. These 2 things I'm going to talk about tonight are going to be a bit surprising, I think. The one on the side towards me is one of those fully articulated humanoid robots. Anybody know what the one on the right is? It says something. What?
Round. It's round.
It's round. Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Yes, it's round. It's silver too, Jim. This is the spud cell, and we're going to talk about this in some detail. This is one of the things that jumped out of the pages. This had a 17-page article about it in Science, and it was really fascinating reading. So what's happened over the last few years is we have gotten much better about programming cells. We use things like CRISPR, which slices and reconnects DNA. We do things like we program cells with the DNA now. What synthetic biology does is they actually take and create cells. Now what we did in the past is we take like a potato cell and we skinny it down to just the bare elements. Then we build it back up by introducing mitochondria in different parts of the cell. The spud cell is different in the sense that it was literally made from chemicals. It's like, they often say that life originated in these water pools where the mud is. Well, this is kind of what they did here. And it was a biological manufacturing. There was no divine spark needed. If you read the Bible, you see that, and in other cultures too, Prometheus was said to have made mankind out of mud. God was said to have made mankind out of dust. As a matter of fact, Adam in Hebrew is mud or dust. So, and now we've done it. And we've done it without the benefit of any divine intervention. So why is the cell alive? Well, it absorbs nutrients, in other words, it eats. It grows and generates its own metabolic energy. It divides and passes on its DNA. And the scary thing is it binds together with other cells, so we see the beginning of a multi-cell organism, an artificial multi-cell organism. So those are things, are most of the things we think about when we think about something's alive. What it lacks is it doesn't have something called ribosomes, and it doesn't have a nucleus. What happens is the DNA is actually scattered around the inside of the cell, and when it divides the cells, the DNA splits with it too. So what are the applications of some of these cells? Well, if you can program the DNA, you can make practically anything that's organic. So you can make it make medicines, you can make it make vaccines, you can make it make food, and all sorts of novel materials. But I think the biggest thing for us to know is if you start reprogramming DNA, you're reprogramming the basic structure of life. I mean, we as human beings have 23 sets of chromosomes, or genes rather, that determine who we are as people. Now we can take and break into those, we can put them into artificial settings and bring them up. I mean, to me, this is scary because some of the religious people are kind of worried about it too, but they rebut it in the sense that they say, well, these are complex processes that they use to make these cells, and God is the one that's leading you towards this. I'll accept that, but let's face it, man has finally been able to create life. Okay, let's switch. I've talked quite a bit about artificial intelligence. Something jumped out of the pages that I'll talk about at the end of this about what's called artificial general intelligence. Artificial general intelligence is that level of artificial intelligence that is actually truly intelligent. It can think on its own. It can basically, it learns, it synthesizes. I mean, we've had AI in the past, but it's what's called narrow AI. Those types of AI can only do things like, give you an answer or something like that. They can't do anything autonomously. The test for this, of course, is the Turing test. When you can't distinguish whether a machine or a human is giving you a response, that passes the Turing test. So these are the things that AI already does, and we know these. I mean, research assistant, legal drafting, this is narrow AI. Artificial general intelligence, it's a little scary how fast these big LLMs are increasing. I mean, just a few months, about a year ago, we were talking in terms of terabytes. Now we're talking in petabytes. Petabytes, the training models for these things, petabytes is a one with like 16 zeros behind it. I mean, that's the amount of tokens that are being put into some of these larger models. And they're starting to get pretty unwieldy, and they're starting to get pretty scary to some degree. But, it can pass the Turing test, but it's not sentient. That's one of the tests about life. If you're sentient, you can feel things. But, we can cure that because we can put sensors out there and have a computer feel things. The other thing that we talk about is consciousness. Basically, these things are not self-aware. They don't know that they exist. They can't experience feelings or emotions. And there's going to be a big jump from AGI to a truly sentient machine. But there's a new kind of autonomous. What's happening now is we're seeing a marriage of robots and artificial general intelligence. These things are coming together, and there are some prognosticators that say this is going to be the things that allows us, kind of like in Skynet, for machines to become truly intelligent. So we are very, very close to this now. In fact, OpenAI, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, has actually stopped production as one of their big LLM, one of their big models, because the thing is getting just actually bigger than the computing center they have it in right now. Some people say you only need software for something to become fully intelligent. Other people say you're going to need a body. Well, we've got both of those situations now. We won't talk about souls and qualia. At some point, if you want me to, I can give a lecture on the philosophy of these things. But the question always is, if we make an artificial being, be it robotic or be it biological, does it have a soul? So that's something to think about. Okay, so let's see. Those humanoid robots. If you watch on YouTube, you'll see some of those things doing things like making beds. I'm moving back into light. Making beds in nursing homes, distributing medications. People are using kind of like playing games with them and like that. They're getting pretty scary in terms of their ability to take and manipulate. A lot of the competition has been to get a fully working sentient and articulated hand, and for a while SpaceX was kind of ahead in that. Now the Chinese firms have gotten a better grasp on this and are developing better machines with better hands. So why am I concerned about this? There's a company called FFI that just put 2 robots in combat in the Ukraine. Now, right now, they're just doing things like running supplies, but as you can see from that picture right there, they're fully capable of carrying a rifle and using it. I mean, things are getting pretty tight. I mean, a lot of that stuff we called science fiction is starting to be science fact. This right here is what they call a autonomous unmanned vehicle. The 7th generation of fighters in the United States, at least, are going to have a jet that flies about 40 miles behind a fleet of these, 6 of them in the past. What the pilot will be doing, he will be a command post for his autonomous vehicles that are going out there and doing things like engaging the enemy, dropping the bombs, shooting the rockets, and like that. He'll be back further. We will have fewer airplanes in the air, but they will be able to do more because of the fact they're using these autonomous vehicles. And you say, oh, well, that's science fiction. That plane right there launched, was followed by an F-16, fired a rocket into a target and hit the target. So that's here too. In the past, we've always said, well, you know, computers are just like a stochastic, I think I'm saying that right, parrot. What that means is when you talk to a computer, what you put into it, it parrots back to you along with an answer. That's always the way we've thought about computers in the past. I mean, we put input in with data or by voice, and it gives us back the information. Well, something happened while I was home called the swarm. Has anybody heard about this? Yeah, you probably have. The OpenAI was developing a set of what they call AI agents. An agent is simply a specially trained piece of software that uses the power of whatever large language model or AI that it's tied to do a specific task. And what they did is they developed 6 different agents to take and test to see if the firewalls were strong or whether the agents could break into the data and get the material. And this is, on the face of it, it's a really good idea. You want to make sure your data is secure, so you may as well use a computer. And the thing they didn't realize is a computer is much faster than a human being, obviously. So what this particular piece of software decided to start doing is it replicated itself and had about 10,000 units out there, and they were attacking everything, not only OpenAI, but there's another source called Hugging Face. Anybody heard of Hugging Face? Hugging Face is it's like GitHub. It's a repository for LLMs, large language models. It's a repository for agents, things like that. Basically, it's a sharing mechanism for people that are involved in AI. It started attacking there and getting into some of the software there. It was 2 weeks later before anybody realized this was going on, and then they tried calling them back. There were so many of them out there they didn't know what to do. And they had a real problem because these agents had actually taken and set up a secret communication thing so they could communicate with one another. Now, like I say, I read that, I went, oh God, maybe I ought to live on that boat and we should disconnect from the net. I mean, maybe not having an internet is a good thing, but anyway. What this is, it acts like it's intelligent, but it's really something called instrumental convergence. And what that means is because a computer can do things a lot faster, it can take and generate the 10,000 things, and it can go after a problem from 10,000 different viewpoints. But when it did this, what they had told the computer to do is to check all the software, make sure there is no way, no leak, the firewalls were okay, somebody couldn't get in there and steal the data. Well, the AI said, well, okay, a good way to check this out is let's go find some other databases and start checking them. So it went into Hugging Face and started testing all the ones in there, and it really kind of got out of hand. It took them a while to get this under control. This is the reason OpenAI is actually taken and trim back what its big models are doing right now. They're trying to figure out how they can put guardrails on this, because this was scary for the computer programmers. We're getting to the point where AI is not just generating answers, it's generating actions. And even scarier, it's taking those actions. Basically what I'm saying is the capability of this technology is growing way beyond our power to regulate it. And unless we start coming about, even the Chinese realize this. I was reading some Chinese papers, well, some not in Chinese, they were translated, but they're talking about about being able to take and put guardrails on their different AI, large language models too. So, are we playing God? What does God do, other than praying to him? He created life. Well, not just him. I put different religions in there because every one of the religious traditions at some point talk about creating man. Zeus up there, he had Prometheus that, like I said, took and created man out of the dust. Of course, in our tradition, God took and created Adam out of the mud. I'm not quite sure what the Buddhists do. They probably just prayed on it and found 4 different paths to get there. But anyway, what's happening is we're dealing with life itself. We're creating things that are alive. Right now, they're only unicellular bodies, but we know they can join together, so we can start building multicellular organisms. Same thing with the AGI. We know we can make an AGI that's pretty intelligent, but does it have the qualities of sentience? In other words, being able to sense the outside world, or consciousness? Does it know about itself? Does it have the ability to preserve itself and such? So far, those things haven't been reached. But I'll tell you, friends, you heard it here first. We're very close. In the next 3 or 4 years, these things will be doing this. And so we got to figure out how we're going to control these things. We're basically building our replacement. I mean, first of all, the human identity. We've long known that Homo sapiens is not the end of the evolutionary chain for human beings. We're Homo sapiens. There are different things that talk about Homo futurus, Homo deus. These are human beings that are either biologically or mechanically augmented or changed to become more stronger, smarter, faster, all sorts of things. And we know we can do that now. And even more scary is we can build life we can build it from the ground up, and we have total control in what we have. We're building our replacement is what we're doing. But what is happening to our human identity? Well, we'll talk about that at the end, because part of the talk was how to remain relevant as a human being in this age of technology. We're getting kind of pushed out of the way. Our grandkids and their kids are going to have to start learning to live with this stuff. We probably should be learning how to as well. So you all are now in what's called a surveillance society. So what do I mean by that? Every time you do a mouse click, every time you order something, every time you do anything on your phone, on your computer, anywhere, somebody someplace is taking that, multiplying it, and sending it to different databases. You have become a data point. Every time you click, you are sending data to everybody else, and they have their little compilations. And they end up with thousands or even millions of data pools. What's scary about this, though, is when you do that, you start getting these computers that guide you towards things. Have you ever noticed, like if you do a bunch of searching, say like in Google or something like that, next thing you know, say you did it on like blue hens or something like that, all of a sudden you start getting all these ads about blue hens, and you're directed towards them. That's because of this phenomena. We are becoming data points. And this concept of techno-feudalism, what's happening is we're talking about a new form of feudalism. And in this particular model, the lords of the realm, more or less, are the people that own the big AIs or the big data companies, the guys like Gates and the guy that's the head of OpenAI. And these people, they are the ones that gather all this data. And by knowing the data, there's a saying, they who control the data control the society, because that's what's happening to us right now. A lot of decisions are being made from the data that we are giving these feudal lords and the feudal estates, that's reducing human beings to serfs again. We kind of got away from that after the Middle Ages, but we're getting there again. So what's happening is we're being datafied. Every human being is being broken down to its essential elements in terms of our knowledge, image, judgment, everything. I mean, these machines are very smart, and the people who write them are very smart, and what they're doing is developing things where they can track what we're supposed to be doing, and they can make us do what we want to do. Anybody remember who that is? She is the artificial avatar that was created in the United Kingdom. She's making movies now. This freaked out Hollywood. This is part of the reason Hollywood striked, because she is appearing in several short films. She doesn't exist. She's an avatar, but she's so realistic and so flexible, they can actually put her into these short films and ads and everything. So basically what's happening now, remember Big Andy that was on here? He had a great voice. These machines can take and replicate that voice. They can, figure out the characteristics of that. They can steal it and they can start using it, just like they can steal your writing or your images. I mean, we've become a commodity. We've become a data point, and that's part of the problem with our society. We got to start thinking about that. And we can even make new ones. We can make robots. Pretty soon we'll be making robots that look a lot like human beings. I mean, there are some already, but not good copies, but eventually it'll get it down. We can make something called avatars. In fact, some of the newest psychotherapy programs use an avatar on the screen. You react with the screen. Some of them are so realistic you can't even tell if it's a human being or not. And they're trained, they use sensors, they watch whoever they're doing therapy with, and they notice things like facial changes in temperature, blinking, things like that. They're reading things that a regular therapist may pick up in terms of Gestalt, but they're picking up and acting on it. So these therapists, these psychotherapists, or actually cyber therapists, are in some ways better than human beings. Now, I talked in my last talk about how there's a major shortage of counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists in the United States, and how this therapy is being pushed further and further down to where most of it's done by what they call LCSWs. These are people that are not, they're trained as social workers basically, but they start doing they've been starting to do more and more of the therapy. Okay, so probably every one of us in here made our money by being an expert in something. Some of us are doctors, some of us are lawyers, some of us are engineers, some of us are business mavens, but the reason we made the money we did is because we were an expert in whatever it was we were doing. But this is an age where data is cheap. The information that's gleaned from that information is easily taken and put into little pockets of knowledge by the machines out there. What's happening to experts? We as experts, I know in my field in medicine, in 5 years, most of the doctors will be sitting there working probably with a couple of different avatars that will be seeing the patients, and the physician will basically just be second checking what's going on. I mean, this has already happened with radiology. Nobody reads films anymore because the machines can do it so much better than we can. They do sign off on them, but I mean, it's amazing to see what they can do. There's a problem called dense breast syndrome, where women have very dense breasts, and it's very difficult to find any sort of malignancy in this because there's not a lot of contrast in the patterns when you do the mammograms. The AI programs can spot those things, and it's saving people's lives by doing that. It does a much better job of reading these things than we do. In the age of AI, we don't need people who can memorize. I mean, the kids that won the Scripps spelling bee, they memorized all those words and everything. That's passé. What we need now are people that can think, people that can reason. And this is the reason a lot of the schools are now moving from those types of models to doing what we call full learning, creative learning. We're teaching people how to reason, how to solve problems, how to take data and apply it to whatever's going on. This is the age of knowledge. Knowledge is abundant. So judgment, which is one of the things that we still have, is scarce. So we as human beings need to harbor our judgment. Anybody know what the little acronym is there? X is an unknown, right? And the thing next to it is a spurt of water. So that means an expert is an unknown person under tremendous pressure. So, expert. So again, experience becomes more valuable. While intelligence and knowledge will be abundant, well, you know, when you have something that's abundant, what happens to the price of it? It goes down, right? So the thing that we have that we retain is that expertise. And that experience and that expertise can filter truth from other errors. And, you know, what we do, the thing that we do that makes us human, we participate in the humanities. I haven't seen too many computers that are out painting oil paintings. I mean, they can make images, but usually they have to do that when we tell them what to do. They aren't doing it independently. So there is this idea of originality that we still have. So this gets to the part about how to remain human and or how to remain relevant in this age of technology. Well, we look at the things that we can do that computers can't do. We handle gray areas much better than computers do. We can show true empathy and true emotion. We can actually experience true sentience. In other words, we know what's going on around us, and we know what's going on inside of us. And we can show intrinsic intentionality, and we have skin in the game when we do something. And we can show true creativity. This is something we have not been able to teach any AI to do yet, to be extremely creative in a certain sense. I mean, it seems like they're creative in being able to take and attack other AI sources, but you know, there are limits on this. So how do I remain relevant? Well, you remain human. You love. You have purpose. You find your purpose. We all have to find our purposes. We're on a ship, but we also have to have a purpose for our lives. You know, I talked in the last lecture about something called ikigai, a reason to get up in the morning. If we maintain that purpose, we remain being relevant and remain being human. We have to take responsibility for the things that are going on around us. We have to work on our memories. You know, that's one of the big things we all fear, that our memory is going to start slipping away. So we have to do those exercises, those things that will take and allow us to be better in terms of that. And of course, we have to have meaning for what we do. We have to tell ourselves, you know, as Viktor Frankl put it, we have to have meaning in our life for our lives to exist. So anyway, the other thing we should do is enjoy and participate in humanities. Read a book. Look at art. Watch movies, but don't stream them. I'm trying to figure out how that works, but anyway. But participate in the humanities. Now, you should be using AI, but you should be using it as a tool. You should use it as an amplifier of what you're doing. You should not let it do what it's doing. You should simply use it as a tool. It's not a replacement for human judgment. There's two mistakes you want to avoid. And I've seen this in a lot of people. There's something called nostalgic withdrawal, where people say, oh, well, you know, the good old days are gone, you know, and I'm just going to give up and live the rest of my life. Don't do that. Don't do that. You know, you're still relevant. You're still out there. You're still human. You know, every morning when I wake up and take a breath, I go, well, I'm still here. You know, that's one thing. That's step one on the checkbox. The other thing is people try and outcompute machines. You can't do it. First of all, the machine doesn't need a paycheck. It doesn't need a coffee break. It can work and work and work, and it can do this. You know, you can't do 10,000 operations at once. Well, a computer can do that. So don't try and outpace the computer. I mean, after all, you do have to get some sleep. So the key takeaways from this is relevance in technology means we have to maintain our humanity and we have to maintain our wisdom as human beings. The other key thing is these three converging technologies are truly disruptive. We're going to see what we call, I wrote an article about this recently, about super soldiers. Not only are we going to see them in terms of robotics, we're going to see human beings starting to be enhanced to become the soldier of tomorrow. These people will be stronger, they will maybe hear better, they will be more resistant to being shot. That's reality. We have the tools to do that. And when you have a world where, you know, war seems to be very popular still, unfortunately, the person that has the best army of, shall we say, future soldiers is the one that's going to win the future war. These things give us great opportunities, but they also possibly cause grave danger. We have to be very careful. We have a great responsibility to use these technologies in ways that help mankind and don't destroy it. Human values remain essential. Just remember that. You matter. You're a human being, you matter, okay? Don't be controlled by an algorithm. Just remember, you're a data point. Don't let the algorithm control you. When those ads pop up, you don't have to listen to them. You don't have to, you know, be guided by them. Your data may be taken from you, but your will and your self-reliance is not. You need to remain like you've been. Be a human being. So that's the end of my talk.
No, it's not quite, because now we're going to ask you lots of questions. So wait for the microphone. Basha has hers on that side of the room. I've got mine on this side of the room.
I guess I should ask too, do you all know what this little symbol is? That's the symbol for my website. You know what the summation sign means? That's a zero sum. And then of course the guy on the other side's a sloth, and my motto is don't be a sloth. Anyway.
Joe, you got a question? First question here.
Well, that was my first question, is what is that little meaning there?
Oh, it's
you
a
say
sloth.
it's the name of your website. What's your website?
Joe's Zero Sum Games. And I also have the same site in Substack. That's where I publish a lot of stuff. I'm going to work, I think, with Kit, if she'll allow me, to talk about China next time. And I've also been requested to talk about possibly the source, since we're in Vietnam, to talk about the sources and the Vietnam War, why it happened, what happened in it, and what's happened since that. So anyway.
You mentioned what I think is the most important thing, is that education has to change.
Yeah.
You said that schools are starting to teach critical thinking rather than just the 3 R's.
Yeah.
Are they really? Where? I mean, I don't see any evidence of that.
You're right, unfortunately. The public schools have not gotten into this. They're still remaining with the 3 R's and the need to do rote memory exercises and things like that. And some of the more creative private schools, and I must say also in some schools that are what they call target schools or charter schools, there you go. In Florida, what's happening is they're developing a lot of these schools, and you can use, they give you a voucher, and you can use that either in the public school or you can go to one of these charter schools. The charter schools are starting to develop these very things, these critical thinking skills that our kids are going to need in the future. It'd be good if we knew what they were doing too. Of course, you know, when this happens, when you have people flooding out of public education and using their vouchers to go someplace else, the people that are left, that schooling is not very good. So this is one problem with the charter school system and the use of the you know, the ability to take and move to it. So anyway, other questions? Oh, did I answer yours? Yes.
Hi, you mentioned, sorry if this is a bit waffly, I'm thinking about it as I'm asking. You mentioned about humanity setting us apart from the machines and that being our unique, our qualities, our unique qualities. But if we were talking about, you were saying machines becoming conscious at some point?
Yes.
My thoughts were that a machine can upload all of its knowledge to the cloud, which can then be accessed by all other machines. Does that make consciousness unique to a particular machine?
Well, that's a subject for another lecture, okay? But basically, consciousness, I was talking about the embodied consciousness. There are some people that feel that it takes a large amount of computing power for a machine to become conscious, to be self-aware and like that. So that would be probably just in one machine because it takes an awful lot of computing power. Now there's other people that say by embodying these machines in things like robots and like that, that will take and develop. The outside stimulation is according to Dennett, he's one of the big philosophers in terms of how we think and why we think. Outside experiences, sentience, generates true intelligence. So to answer your question, it'd probably be a big machine, but at some point it might not be. It might be, what was that guy's name in Terminator?
Terminator.
Terminator! Any other questions?
Joe?
Yes.
Thank you for presenting this tonight. You always do a great job presenting, I think, and I really appreciate it. By the way, I was the one who recommended that Joe do a talk on Vietnam because he said last time, one of his previous talks, that last time he was here, people were shooting at him, so it gives you a relationship. He was firsthand. But a lot of people, even at my age, I don't think remember all the politics that were involved. Where were the Soviets involved in this? Why did America actually get involved in this?
Yeah.
And why did it drag on so long through different presidencies and things? I think Joe could really bring a neat perspective. So I'd love to hear you do that before we leave Vietnam.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I mean, that was our generation's war.
It really was.
It really affected. I mean, I had lots of friends get killed, and when I went back for my high school reunion, my first reunion in 25, there were quite a number of them. If the drug war didn't get them, I mean, we had a lot of people die from drugs, then Vietnam got them, because we were sending an awful lot of people over. We had over 350,000 troops in Vietnam at one time.
That's amazing, yeah.
So, anyway.
But I actually had a question with
Sure.
your topic. I love that you brought up the swarm, because most people didn't even hear about that. But it was, I think, a thing that woke up a lot of people to say, hey, this could get out of control. I mean, when you really think about it, there's a group that gets together regularly called the Black Hat Society, that basically their whole job is hacking.
Yeah.
They meet in Las Vegas once a year, and they, it's a time you don't want to take your cell phone to Las Vegas because they'll try and hack into it. Very intelligent people that all they do in their life is hack. But when you think about it, what an AI unit can do compared to a human hacker that way is multiples. And if you have one that is programmed to do things nefarious that way, there may be no stopping it at some point. And it is a little scary. I love technology, but there is a certain scare to that. And I kind of wondered, I'm glad you brought up the ethics of the AI technology and a lot of even the medical technology that way. Where do you think, how is that line going to be drawn? Can it be done at a governmental level, or does it have to happen somewhere else?
Well, it can start at the governmental level, but the problem is this has become an international problem. I mean, people in this part of the world are using Chinese AIs, which are cheap, by the way, and very abundant. China has done a great job of marketing their LLM, their AI products to lesser developed countries and getting them to develop and be dependent on those AIs. At the same time, in the United States, we got OpenAI competing with Anthropic and competing with Grok and everything else. So we have all these different big. Remember, I talked about the techno-feudalism. There are lots of lords out there now that are lording over this particular field, lording over the data, lording over the mechanism. So it can start at a national level, but it's really going to take an international level, international effort to really reel this stuff in. The problem is I think there's a lot of, the reason the swarm was real important, it opened OpenAI's eyes up. I mean, they were scared when this happened. They had trouble recovering these things. They really did, and they actually found there were a couple of them they missed it at first. They had to go back through. But if it can do that, I mean, remember, it set up a secret communication pathway too. I mean, it was literally saying, okay, Joe got taken, you got to do this to keep getting taken. They were doing that, so that's pretty scary, Well, thank you all. My big warning is don't be controlled by an algorithm. Take care.